going to talk about market structure, right? So I want to, most of you probably understand what market structure is, right? But it's very important to really understand what market structure is and how to identify market structure and how to really incorporate market structure, identify market structure into your own trading. It's very simple, right? But I see a lot of people not really understanding this and getting it completely wrong. So I think it's very important to just cover the very basics here, because it is a fundamental part of your trading journey is to learn market structure. I would say that if you only have to, like, there's two things that are absolutely crucial for every new trader to understand, and that is market structure and horizontal support and resistance. If you understand market structure and horizontal support and resistance, you can build a trading system just simply on that without any indicators or anything like that, because that is really the core of financial markets, right? We're watching price graphs, we're watching, the charts, call it whatever you want. But basically what it is market structure is how is price behaving, right? All right, so you have, simply put, two types of market structure. You have one, a trending market structure, and two, a ranging market structure. And a trending market structure could obviously be an uptrend and a downtrend, right? So in an uptrend, you have higher highs and higher lows. Very simply, right? That's an uptrend. And in a downtrend, you have the lower lows and lower highs. And then in a ranging market, you have prices going sideways, creating equal highs and equal lows. You guys know this, right? This is simple, but I'm going to get into more advanced stuff shortly. That's the basic, right? So you have two types of market structure, trending and ranging. Your job as a trader, I'd say this goes for most people. I mean, obviously we got traders who are range traders, but I think it's for, at least for beginners, it's best to start with identifying a trend, right? So you look at market structure and try to identify market structure, and you can ask yourself, is there a trend here? And if there is a trend, if you find a trend, you will want to ask, three questions. How can I participate in the trend? And, well, all right, so question number one is, what is the trend, right? Is it an uptrend or downtrend? So what is the trend? And then question number two is, how can I participate in that trend? And then question number three is, how can I participate in the trend and manage my risk accordingly while running with that trend, right? So let's look at some live examples here to see if we can actually, identify the market structure, right? And you probably know this, right? But you have, usually the way markets work is at the bottoms and at the tops, you have obviously a trend reversal. And the way a trend reversal looks is most likely a trending market switching to a ranging market before switching trend, basically. So let's say you have an uptrend right here. So you have an upwards trending market with higher highs and higher lows, obviously quite simple. And then at the top you will have something like a distribution range where you have a range forming. Now obviously we don't know if this is distribution until we get this move, right? But we can, of course, get a breakout and continuation, right? So we just have a pause in the trend. We have a range inside an overall bigger market structure, right? And you can, of course, also have where the top is obviously a range. You get a breakdown. And this is the start of a bearish market structure, a down downwards trending market structure, right? And at the bottom of this trend, you might see a range, right? And then a breakout and the start of a new uptrend, right? So this is the type of, this is what you want to find, right? You want to look at the markets and you want to try to ask yourself, where are we right now? Where are we right now? We know that we've been in an uptrend. We had a range and we broke that range to the downside. So we had a distribution range right here, accumulation range right here. And we now have broken above the accumulation range and we retested the highs of that accumulation range. And we're looking for price to trade higher. So we are at the potentially the beginning of a new uptrend, right? And this is just basically what you need to look for, right? You want to be, if you're a trend following trader, which I do think most of you are, and if you're a beginner trader, that is what you should be focused on. Your focus should lie on these market structures right here and not the ranging market structure. When you see a ranging market structure, that might tell you that when we get out of this range, when we break this range to the upside or the downside, you will start to be interested in taking a trade if there's going to be a trend developing, right? So for example, if you see a market like this and you have a range, you might want to have alerts above the range and below the range, and whatever the trend starts, you want to look for entries on that, potentially that new trend, right? I think I have a pretty good example here on XRP, right? The trade setup here on XRP, where look at the 4 hour right here. I think we can go to a clean shot right here and just go to XRP. So remove all the drawings. See, yes. So we're on the 4 hour right here. So if you look at the overall picture right here, I would say that there is somewhat of a downtrend here, right? There's somewhat of a downtrend going here, right? You could argue that you have a high, low, lower high, equal lows, but then that's a lower low, lower low, high, lower high, and so forth. So somewhat of a downtrend, right? Now, it's very important that it's very important to remember that market structure is not going to be perfect, right? So it's absolutely like it's never going to be perfect, right? So you have to, almost use your own imagination a bit to kind of see where the overall trend is going, where's the overall tops and the bottoms and that kind of stuff. But if you look at XRP right here, you can see that we have inside these trends right here, we have, and this is what I mean by price action being fractal, right? Where inside these trends, you have smaller trends inside the bigger trends, and inside the bigger trends you have ranges, and inside those ranges you have trends. So it's important to understand like what time frames are you trading on. Are you a high time frame trader, trading on daily, the weekly, the 4 hour, or are you trading on the lower time frames like a scalper? So you need to first have a grasp of the high time frame market structure. So what's the high time frame market structure right here? Well, if you're a scalper and you're interested in scalping this range or maybe that range or whatever, and this trend and that trend, it's important to remember that the overall trend is bearish, right? At least I think it would be even bearish here. So that would help you as a scalper to trade with the overall trend, because usually even if you're on the 15-minute chart, the bigger moves are going to be the moves that are in accordance to the higher time frame trends, right? So what I wanted to show you here is how we have this structure right here, where you have a, let's say this is somewhat of a range, right? With equal highs and equal lows. But you can also see how the overall market structure of this range right here is rather bearish, right? If you use the wicks here, you can kind of connect a trend line here, you can connect a trend line to maybe this low right here. So the overall market structure here is bearish. It's a range, but it's somewhat of a bearish market structure, right? So if I'm trading a range and I'm seeing that if I zoom out and I look at the actual range, I see that the highs are slightly lower and the lows are slightly lower. I think, and then the overall, if you zoom out, you'll see that the overall market structure is bearish. That would tell me that I'm going to look to short this, right? I'm going to look to short inside this range, not long, because if I long this range, I'm going against the high time frame trends. If I'm, I want to look at shorting this range basically. And we then see how price breaks range lows right here and then forms a new range right here. So it forms a new range in this area and then breaks this range to the upside. And this is where the interesting things starts to happen. This is where you now break the market structure, right? So you have a range, breakdown range, and these two ranges would be on the bigger picture would be higher lows and lower lows and lower highs, right? To form this overall market structure right here. But what's happening now is when you're breaking this range to the upside right here, you're starting to form a bullish market structure, right? You had the bearish market structure going right here, but you're now broken above this range right here, and you're now starting a bullish market structure, right? If you go out to the daily and you look at the overall market structure right here, we've talked about how this area right here, we looked at the 4-hour and that looked like a bearish market structure. So you want some confirmation here before actually longing that bearish market structure. Now, when we have that range right here and the breakout, this could now be viewed as a low, a high low, and a high and a higher high area. So we might actually see a start of a new major uptrend, right? So we now know that we've broken this bearish market structure by reclaiming that level. We get equal highs right here. So we've broken the low time frame bearish market structure and the local bearish market structure, and we are now starting to see a bullish market structure, and that might also be the start of a high time frame bullish market structure. So this is what I looked at when scanning the markets and finding this setup right here on XRP. So we can go back to the actual chart right here, and we can see how we have that level right here. I drew the level lower here, but obviously that was not necessary when I found this setup right here. So what we have right here, let's go back to this one. What we have right here on the 4-hour is now a pretty clear bullish market structure right here with a breakout high, low, high. Let's say low here. It's somewhat of a a bullish market structure. You can kind of write it something like this as well. Would it be maybe something like this? You can kind of see how there's higher highs and higher lows right here. And the idea of going long on this was based on waiting for price to reclaim the moving averages, right? But it's also, you can remove all the levels, all the moving averages and all the fibs and everything. You can just remove all that and you will still see that everything this is just a continuation move of the current market structure. That's everything this is. Let's just remove everything here. And you will clearly see that when I add these levels on here, again, you will see that everything that the indicator is doing is just confirming market structure, right? So what happened here was you had this resistance right here. You had a major breakout and then a rounded retest of that level once again. A rounded retest of this breakout level right here. That would be, the best opportunity to go long, right? I think I had my buy zone somewhere in this area because I wanted to see a reclaim of the 4-hour 20 and 50 EMA. But without any indicators, you can clearly see here that it's just a long in anticipation of the move continuing, and the market structure telling me that it's a bullish market structure, right? That's all it is. So if you add a horizontal level right here, that would be your trade. Just as soon as you have a round the bottom and a bounce right here, that would be the trade, right? You don't need any indicators at all to find that. All you have to do is like look at market structure. In a bullish market structure, throwbacks down to the breakout level has a fairly high probability of being the dip to be bought, right? So you have higher highs and higher lows. When you're retesting the breakout level, that is most likely when you create a new higher low, and that's all you need.